I'm Clara. Standing in the silence of my apartment after my family left, I feel a strange sense of calm. The confrontation just now was intense, but it was also a long overdue release. As I sit at my table, forwarding the incident details to my attorney, I can't help but look back on how I got here. It all started with my grandparents passing. They were a hard-working couple. My grandfather, Mr. Thompson, had built a small but successful manufacturing business in Michigan over the years. He was a man of discipline, always reinvesting in the business and being cautious with money. Alongside the business, he had set up some conservative investment accounts. When they passed away, the business shares and the investment accounts were placed into a structured family trust. I was named the managing beneficiary of the trust. I had studied business administration and worked in financial management. I was the one who had been helping my grandfather organize his financial records when his health started to decline. I knew the ins and outs of the trust, where the statements were kept, and how the cash flow worked. My father, Henry Thompson, was a proud man. He always wanted to show off our family's status. He treated the trust like an endless source of money, never really caring about the fiduciary duties or reporting periods. All he cared about was that our family looked good in the eyes of the neighbors. My mother, Emily Thompson, was a peace-loving woman. She always wanted to avoid conflicts and would rather keep things smooth than dig deep into the financial details. My older brother, Jake Thompson, was full of confidence, but often without the competence to back it up. He believed that as long as he acted confident, success would follow. At first, the support from the trust was straightforward. My father decided to upgrade our family home, underestimating the new mortgage payments. So, I redirected part of the quarterly distributions to cover the gap. Jake leased a high-end sports car, claiming it was for business opportunities. When the payments became a problem, I structured a payment plan to keep his credit clean. During tough economic times, I cleared the family's credit card debts to prevent long-term damage. I did all these things quietly, logging every request and saving all the statements. I didn't want to cause any conflict, and my family assumed the money came from an insurance settlement related to my grandparents' estate. I, on the other hand, lived a simple life. I rented a small apartment near my work, drove an old but reliable car, and built an emergency fund. I refused to take on unnecessary debt just for appearances. When people joked about my simple lifestyle, I just let it go. I'd rather be underestimated than be in a difficult situation. Over time, things started to change. The family's requests became more and more demanding. Jake wanted to upgrade his car again, and my father planned a major renovation of the house. They no longer saw the support from the trust as help, but as their right. My mother would just ask me to handle things quietly so that everyone could stay comfortable. I carried the stress privately, thinking that I was protecting the family legacy. I told myself that it was just temporary, and once they got stable, I could step back. But then, one Sunday dinner changed everything. The atmosphere at the dinner table was different. My father was wearing his best suit, and the table was set with expensive dishes. He started talking about family image and how we should keep up with the neighbors. He criticized my apartment and my car, comparing my cautious career path with Jake's so-called ambitious real estate plans. Then, he dropped the bombshell. He announced that they were planning a full-scale renovation of the house, including structural changes and custom finishes. He said it was necessary to protect the family's long-term value. He had already talked to the lender, and all that was left was my signature for the increased credit line. He framed it as a form of cooperation, as if I had no choice. In that moment, I realized that they no longer saw the support as help. They saw it as an entitlement. I told my father that I needed time to review the documents. He was disappointed at first, then irritated. He thought I was being afraid or incompetent, but he didn't understand that I was making a calculated decision. The next day, I received the lender packet from my father. The renovation proposal and the draft agreement were full of risks for the trust. I read every page carefully and flagged the important clauses. I called the loan officer to confirm that my verified signature was required for the loan to proceed. That evening, I drove to my parents' house to check if the renovation was already being treated as a done deal. A contractor's truck was parked outside, and through the window, I saw sample boards on the dining table. I let myself in quietly and went to my father's study. There, I found an invitation for a home reveal night, with my father, mother, and Jake's names on it, but not mine. Underneath was an email chain where Jake joked about me ruining the vibe with my old car, and my father said it was better if I didn't attend. The last page was a contractor's note requesting a deposit. That night, I called my trust attorney, Miss Green. I gave her all the facts, not my feelings. She laid out a plan with legal, documented, and enforceable steps, including immediate restrictions on disbursements and formal written notice for any future changes. 2 days later, my father called and told me to come to the house after work. When I arrived, the house was filled with the smell of catered food, and the table was set formally. My father started talking about the lender's schedule and the contractor's needs, sounding more like a business deal than a family conversation. I placed a thin folder on the table. Inside were a letter from my attorney, a compliance notice, and a ledger summary. My father was shocked when he saw the letterhead. I explained that it was the line he had been crossing. Jake tried to laugh it off, but I slid the compliance notice to my father. It clearly stated the restrictions: no new debt secured by trust-backed assets, no credit expansion, no contractor deposits without review, and all requests had to go through me. It also warned that any attempt to bypass these restrictions would trigger a structured wind down. My father tried to dismiss it as me being upset about the invitation, but I showed him the printed email chain. He was angry when he realized I had been in his study, but I reminded him that he had given me the responsibility. My father then said that we were family and that families help each other. I told him that help doesn't come with disrespect and that they couldn't risk accounts they didn't manage. Jake panicked and started listing all the expenses, but I simply told him that they had 60 days to refinance, restructure, sell, or downsize. After that, their bills would be their own. My father then said that my grandparents would be ashamed of me. I showed him a highlighted paragraph from the trust memorandum, which stated that support was for stability, not prestige, and that the trustee had the discretion to stop misuse. I left the house, telling them they would receive the formal notice by email and certified mail. The next morning, my phone started buzzing non-stop with calls, texts, and voicemails. I ignored them all. I wasn't going to let their panic become my problem again. Around midday, there was a knock on my door. It was my father and Jake. My father tried to force his way in, but I held the door steady. He first tried to say there was a misunderstanding, then started criticizing my choices and attitude. Jake talked about deals falling apart and how it would hurt the whole family, but I didn't negotiate. My mother arrived later, carrying a folder, looking tired and torn. She tried to smooth things over, but I told them that I wouldn't discuss it at the door and that all financial communication would go through my attorney. When my father's composure broke and he raised his voice, I reached for my phone and told him that if he didn't leave, I would call the police. An officer, Officer Davis, arrived and asked for the facts. My father tried to put on a polite act, but it didn't work. They left, not gracefully, but with reluctant compliance. 3 weeks passed, and the silence from my family was not a sign of peace. It was damage control. The contractor stopped returning my father's calls, and the home renovation was cancelled. The lender sent warnings about the home equity line, and my father's attempts at personal financing failed because of his long-term debt. Jake's sports car lease was surrendered voluntarily after he couldn't keep up with the payments. My mother lost the comfort of pretending everything was okay, and the family's credit card accounts were in trouble. The house was the hardest hit. After the transition window closed, The mortgage payments were entirely on my parents. My father kept delaying, hoping I would change my mind, but the bank started sending delinquency notices. I didn't intervene. I honored the boundaries I had set. The trust wind down was completed, and I restructured the remaining funds into a separate vehicle for education grants. I changed my phone settings, blocking my father and Jake's numbers and sending my mother's calls to voicemail. Looking back, I've learned that love and access are not the same thing. Family can be a source of support, but it can also be a system that makes you accept disrespect. Boundaries are not cruel, they are a way to bring clarity. I hope my story can make you think about where to draw the line between helping family and sacrificing yourself.